in this episode of Tea Time with Jen / my podcast. I'm inconsistent about naming this because I am, It's pretty cold, still pretty cold. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. I picked up some groceries today, which I was pretty excited about. I mostly only eat non-animal foods. That's not to say I will never eat animal foods. It's just that I actively try to cook non-animal foods. If I'm going to eat non-animal or animal foods, it's probably going to be like someone else made it or at a restaurant or something, because it's really hard to find good tasting non-animal food that's not just a salad. I'm sitting in front of a fireplace right now. I'm really excited because I bought whiskey, which I've never done before. I mean, I've bought whiskey before, but typically when I buy whiskey, I just buy whiskey at a store, so it's like very anticlimactic. Sorry, not a store, a bar. It's very anticlimactic. It's like $10 to buy. It's not that much. How much is... I don't know how much they give you in terms of ounces. I think it's like an ounce, 2 ounces. I have no idea. I'm just guessing right now. But it's not a lot, and I was pretty excited because it's like when you buy a full bottle of whiskey, it's actually not that expensive. Or at least I didn't buy the expensive kind. The kind that I bought was like $22 a bottle, which I think it's a good deal considering that like whiskey is like pretty high in terms of alcohol content. So I got Jameson Irish whiskey, which I have not gotten before. Well, okay, I have, but not in a long time. I didn't enjoy whiskey on its own for a long time. I really didn't. It was more so just the sort of thing where I kind of would just drink it when I was at a bar or at someone else's place. Because not everyone has the wines that I like. And I don't like mixed drinks because there's all these random bitters or fruity stuff that tends to have a lot of fake sugar. Fake sugar is probably not even what's going on. It's just unnecessary sugar. But I'm pretty excited. I've been craving whiskey. I don't know, that sounds really, I'm craving whiskey. It sounds ridiculous. But I'm pretty excited right now because it's a pretty big bottle. I mean, I think this is just the normal size the bottle comes in. I don't know how big it is. It's a liter. Okay, it's a liter, so that's like 38 ounces. I'm guessing. It's about there. I could calculate it, but I don't care enough right now. I have to finish. Hold on. I was drinking Riesling. It's a white wine from Germany. Okay, I finished that. Okay, now I don't know if you can hear that glugging noise. I'm pretty excited about the Jameson. I'm really excited because I've been craving whiskey for like the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I was at Trader Joe's. So I recognize that Trader Joe's is not a store that exists internationally. It's an American store. But I went to Trader Joe's, and they didn't have they didn't have a huge whiskey collection, which I wasn't really surprised by in any means, because the audience that typically frequents Trader Joe's is somewhat younger. They have a quite happy wine selection though, so I typically frequent that, and the prices are really good. Because there are a lot of, wine, you could find wine everywhere. It's fairly common. But Trader Joe has really good prices. Really, really, really good prices. I always appreciate that. So I picked up a bottle of Riesling. I'm on a Riesling phase. First time I had Riesling was, I think, 3 years ago. Yeah, the first time I had Riesling was 3 years ago. It's a nice, white, sweet, dry wine. You can get them, like, super sweet, kind of sweet, or, like, I think I prefer it more drier than sweet. So if it gets too sweet, then it just reminds me of a Moscato or Prosecco, and it's like, okay, that's way too sweet. I don't want to deal with that. My voice is still weird, and I blame it on smoking. I have been stressed out recently, so I've been smoking cigarettes again, which I don't like doing. I think if anything I prefer cigars because then I don't inhale and I just get the nicotine and I get the taste. Whereas when I try to do that with cigarettes, I don't really get the taste and I don't really get the nicotine, so then I'm forced to inhale, but then I don't like inhaling. So, yeah, that's a topic for later. But I'm almost out, so I have to deal with that at some point in the next few days. I was reading this article. I recognize that every one of these podcasts or tea times with Jen, they're never tea times with Jen. I do drink tea every day, but when I drink tea the first thing in the morning, the first thing I wake up, and I typically film these podcast episodes at night or fairly later in the day, so I'm not drinking tea anymore. Tea is something that I do either like dead first thing I do or dead last thing I do. But it's not really a middle of the day thing. The middle of the day thing is typically alcohol for me. So I'm typically drinking alcohol. But whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't notice, you just know what I tell you. Yeah, because you don't notice. You just know what I tell you. Okay, something I'm really excited about that I got from Trader Joe's is flaxseed meal. I don't really know that much about it, but I'm really excited. I'm looking at the bag right now. It's because I'm not a huge fan of flour. It's so specific. You're not a huge fan of flour. It's so specific, I know, but because I'm not a huge fan of processed food. So if I could have something that's like an actual food versus something that's super processed, I'm going to prefer something as minimally processed as possible. So flaxseed meal is just flaxseed that's ground up. And so I'm going to use that to make pancakes in the next few days. But like that isn't enough on its own, so then I'm going to take oatmeal and blend that in a blender to get it into like a flour sort of grainy texture. Mix out some of the flaxseed, some coconut oil, and then I have chia seeds to make like the binding agent because I don't want to use egg, and like cinnamon and nutmeg, and then make pancakes with that. And then I got maple syrup, but like the maple syrup I got I'm really excited about because it's, Trader Joe's Reserve Bourbon Barrel-Aged Maple Syrup. Yeah, I sound like an alcoholic right now. There's no alcohol in this, maple syrup. But I'm pretty excited about it though because, like, obviously alcohol is made in barrels and, I guess they made this maple syrup in one of those bourbon barrels. Yep, so I'm curious about that. It's a bit more liquidy, I think. I have no idea, actually, because this maple syrup is coming in a glass bottle, which I'm not used to in any capacity, but it's pretty exciting to me. So, I don't know, I save all of my glass bottles, I really do. I literally save all of my glass bottles. Not all of them, but I think probably about 80% of them to 95% of them I do. Hey, lady! Damn it, lady! Sorry, that's my dog. I left seaweed on the table, and like, here, I'll give it to you, let go. She like took a package of seaweed, but like she conveniently ignores the fact that it's like completely packaged still. So it's like if she wants to eat it, like she needs me to help her open it for her. So here, I'm gonna put it here. Sit. Sit. Okay, whatever. It's fine. There you go. Everyone gets some. Go ahead. Go ahead. See, good job, lady. Because you're so adamant about seaweed, now you get seaweed. You're lucky, because I didn't eat it. I was just going to leave it on the table. It's healthy for you, too. It's literally just seaweed. There is salt, but, like, I mean, obviously it's just kind of, there's already salt in it for obvious reasons. It's, yeah, whatever, obvious. I'm just going to leave it. It's not obvious. It's not obvious. I really like cooking, which is something that's not always been the case, but I actually really like cooking. And, well, I know why it's the case. I used to feel really uncomfortable cooking, and I didn't fully understand why. I thought I was uncomfortable cooking because I thought there was like an element of, oh my god, it's like super feminine to cook. And I was like, no, I don't want to be super feminine. I like sports, blah, 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 like all this shit. But, No, I think I realized I didn't like cooking because I didn't really like eating meat. And, like, basically most recipes involved meat, and it made me really uncomfortable. And then once I realized that, I'm like, oh, I actually do like cooking. I just don't like cooking what you're cooking. Cool. And that solves that sort of situation for me. I'm on, like, a binge of Scream Queens right now. And so the creator, Ryan Murphy, also did American Horror Story. American Horror Story I really like, but I'm also terrified of, so it's not something I could regularly watch. It's like in moments of like extreme confidence that I'm just like, I want to be scared right now. Make me scared to sit here. Scream Queens kind of got that way second season, and I was like momentarily worried that it would be too American Horror Story and I wouldn't like it. But it's very comedic, so it's good. It's good. Comedy, like, ices the tension. Like, American Horror Story, it makes me way too tense. Hey, no. You can't have two of those. That one's mine. Okay. Sorry, lady. Yeah, anyway. I was reading this article, and this article is what I wanted to talk about. In this article, it was posted by the Huffington Post. And the whole gist of the article was simply, I don't remember the title. I'll include a link to the article because I always do that because I like reading random shit and talking about random shit that I read. And I don't remember what it's called, but I'll link it and so you can read it if you want to read it. But the article talks about trust and how trust works. And you could find this sort of topic brought up all over the place, all over the internet, blah, blah, blah. But I chose this one because I did, and I liked it because I thought I agreed with how things were conceptualized. And in this article, they talked about how trust is a difficult thing for a few different reasons. But the ones that I think is most universally relevant to everyone is that trust is a complicated thing because, one, oftentimes we are taught to trust the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And it gives an example about how when you're a baby, when you're this little infant thing, it is in your best strategy to have unmitigated trust of everyone, which makes sense because if you're this little infant thing, you need everyone who wants to take care of you to take care of you. That makes sense. So you can't really do anything on your own. So the whole idea of unmitigated trust is great. And, you know, when things happen, like, I don't know, it gave specific examples in the article of, like, parents being bad parents and not raising their child well. It gave very specific examples, but I'm going to skip over them. But the point is that as a very young infant, survival-wise, evolutionary-wise, biologically it makes sense that it's kind of ingrained in us, this notion of unmitigated trust of everyone. But then as you get older, that concept changes. And we don't have unmitigated trust of anyone anymore. And the reason why is that, well, one, we don't need to. When you're this young little infant dudette, I use dude universally without regard to gender, whatever. But when you're this little infant dude, it's in your best interest to accept anyone's care and attention and loyalty because you can't feed yourself, you can't protect yourself, you can't provide shelter for yourself, all of these different aspects. Then as you get older, you develop capacities, you develop skills, you can protect yourself, you can feed yourself, you can clean yourself, and different things. And what I found interesting about the article, it talked about how you should trust yourself first, but then you should also be able to trust everyone. And so first I'm going to talk about the part where you should trust yourself. That part is something which I found this article to be important, because that's an element which I have found most relevant to myself with regards to, a lot of times people don't trust their own judgment, which it makes sense because this kind of goes back to the whole story of when you're infant dude, it is in your best strategy to have unmitigated trust. Trust without qualifications, trust without exceptions. And when that is how you were initially raised, it makes sense that for you to have a sense of doubt or questioning in your own capacities or in your own conclusions. And what I liked about this article was that it encouraged you to trust in yourself and to trust in your own conclusions. It doesn't say that exactly how I've come to describe it, but I think that's where the author is going. And the other element that I liked about this article was that it told you to trust everyone. And that was something that kind of, initially when you hear it, trust everyone, it makes you think that you should believe that at everyone's core, everyone's good. And for the longest time, that's what I believe, that at everyone's core, everyone's good. No matter if you're Hitler, no matter who you are, at everyone's core, everyone's good, and everyone's trying to do the best, even if they don't, and even if they consistently don't. What I liked about this article is that it didn't say that. Instead, what it said was, hey, I expect this lion to kill this deer. I expect this animal to kill this animal. I expect this animal to eat this animal. And, when I say that you should trust everyone, I'm not saying you should trust everyone to act in your best interest. I'm saying that you should trust people to act as they naturally act, in terms of how a person acts isn't going to change necessarily. So trusting in someone doesn't necessarily mean I'm trusting that you are a good person, but it means that I am trusting you to be reliably you. Which doesn't really sound like it amounts to much, because then it sounds like there's two different ways of using the term trust. In the traditional way of using the term trust, it means, I trust you to have my best interest. You're a good person. I trust you. That's the traditional way of using the word trust. And in this article, it talked about trust as trusting yourself, but then trusting in people. And then it also talked about this little experiment. And this little experiment I agreed with. And you have to trust in yourself first, though, for this little experiment to be worth it. This little sociology experiment, or psychological experiment. And it's basically, trust yourself. That's step one. After you trust yourself, make predictions about the world, people, or situations, as specific or as broad as you want. So step one, trust yourself. Step two, make predictions about people, situations, events, behaviors. Step three, see how well reality aligns with your predictions. Step four, alter your initial hypothesis regularly in regards to what actually happens versus what you predicted. I feel like this episode's a little short today. I don't actually think it is a little short. I think it's just my perception of it. I don't think I have anything else I want to talk about. I think that was the only thing I wanted to talk about. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so I just took a sip of the sip. I say zip, like Z-I-P, as opposed to sip, S-I-P. And I'm perceptive that I do that, but I don't think that's going to change. So I trust myself to say zip, not sip, even though I recognize that the latter is correct and the former isn't, and I do the former. This Jameson, not just this Jameson, but liqueurs in general, they have a very warming effect, but also a very seasonal sort of vibe that I get. I went to a solstice party before. I'm not a sort of avid celebrator of this, but I was invited to one, and only one, a few years ago, and these Celtics were having a Celtic party, and they made glögg, and I drank some, and it was very good. It was a warm beverage. This was December, and I recreated this beverage later on in my life for a birthday party of mine, and it involves port wine, bourbon, orange peel, cloves. It involves other things too, but obviously I've only made it once, so I don't really remember all the peculiarities of this beverage, but I recognize that I really do appreciate liqueur as a sort of winter beverage, because it does have sort of a spicy, not spicy like hot, but spicy as in I think of spices, and I smell spices, and I taste spices when I drink them. I'm drinking this whiskey out of I would label this a champagne, no, I wouldn't say champagne. I don't know if Prosecco and Moscatos have different glasses, but if they did, this is what I would serve it out of, because it's not a traditional wine glass, and it's not a traditional champagne glass. It's a mix between the two, and I'm drinking it out of that right now, because I think the amount of whiskey that you would typically drink out of a whiskey glass looks great in this size of wine glass. So, anyway, that is the end of this episode, and have a good day. If you would like to offer me any sort of feedback or your thoughts, I would be curious. Have a good start of December.